topic of today's short talk is, where do players come from? It's a question that seems straightforward enough, but scratch beneath the surface and you'll find one of the most misunderstood psychological transformations in modern relationships. Most people assume players are just born that way, naturally selfish, inherently manipulative, genetically predisposed to breaking hearts. But that's not what I've observed, and it's certainly not what the psychological literature suggests. The reality is far more complex, and frankly, far more tragic. You see, the vast majority of players I've encountered, and I've worked with hundreds of men over the years, didn't start out as players at all. They started out as what we commonly call nice guys. And I'm not talking about the fake nice guys, the ones who perform kindness as a manipulation tactic. I'm talking about genuinely caring, empathetic men. Men who believed in fairness, reciprocity, and treating people with respect. So what happened to them? This transformation from nice guy to player has become so common in today's dating landscape that we barely question it anymore. A guy gets his heart broken a few times, becomes cynical, and suddenly he's out there treating women like disposable objects. Society shrugs and says, well, that's just how men are. But that explanation, it's intellectually lazy and psychologically naive. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in human psychology, spoke about the integration of the shadow, the process of confronting and integrating the parts of ourselves we've been taught to suppress. What we're witnessing in the nice guy to player transformation is not moral corruption, it's shadow integration gone wrong. Here's what I mean. The archetypal nice guy isn't operating from authentic kindness. He's operating from a psychological contract that says, if I am good enough, caring enough, selfless enough, I will be rewarded with love and affection. This isn't virtue, it's a transaction. But relationships don't operate like business deals, and attraction doesn't follow the rules of moral reciprocity. This creates cognitive dissonance, a painful tension between what a man believes should happen and what actually happens. And when that dissonance becomes too great, something breaks. Let me be clear. I'm not here to shame nice guys, and I'm definitely not here to glorify players. I'm here to understand this transformation. Because until we do, we'll keep misunderstanding the real source of pain for both men and women. Now, conventional wisdom gives us three main explanations for where players come from, and all three are wrong. Explanation 1, players are naturally selfish and narcissistic. They were just born that way. Comforting? Sure. But it doesn't explain why so many players started out as genuinely loving, devoted men. Explanation 2, they were never really nice to begin with. This just manipulative from the start, but that doesn't match the evidence either. I've seen real transformations, slow, reluctant, defensive, not coldly calculated from the start. Explanation 3, modern hookup culture corrupted them. Dating apps, casual sex, instant gratification. There's some truth there, but it's incomplete. These factors don't create players. They just provide the perfect stage for that transformation to play out. So what actually does cause it? Here's the real answer. The player isn't born, he's built. He's forged in the fire of emotional contradiction, trained by a world that punishes vulnerability and rewards detachment. He spent years following the rules, be kind, be open, be giving, and the result? He was overlooked, taken for granted, sometimes even mocked for being too emotional. And then one day, he experimented. He withheld a little, he flirted but didn't chase. He became slightly colder, more mysterious. And what happened? It worked. Not once, not twice, repeatedly. And when a behavior is consistently rewarded, it gets repeated. Eventually, it becomes personality. That's not seduction. That's basic behavioral psychology. Operant conditioning. But here's the twist. The exact same mechanisms that create healthy confidence and boundaries can also create manipulation and emotional detachment. The difference isn't in what he does, it's in why he does it. One man learns boundaries from self-respect. The other learns them as a form of emotional armor. To the outside world, they may look the same, but on the inside, one is calm, the other is bitter. So, let me leave you with this. The real question isn't where do players come from? The real question is, what determines whether a man's psychological transformation leads to authentic growth or toxic defense? Because that's the question that actually leads to healing. And that's the conversation we need to have. To understand what determines whether this transformation leads to healthy integration or toxic extremism, we need to examine the actual psychological process that occurs when a nice guy becomes a player. This isn't a sudden switch that happens overnight. It's a gradual psychological evolution, and it typically unfolds in three distinct phases. And understanding these phases is crucial because intervention is possible at each stage. The disillusionment. It all starts with what I call the shattering of the social contract. The nice guy believes relationships follow rules. Be good, be patient, be giving, and you will be loved, respected, and chosen. But then he experiences betrayal. Maybe she says you're too nice. Maybe she leaves him for someone colder, someone emotionally unavailable. Maybe he's friend-zoned repeatedly, listening to stories about men she actually sleeps with. At this point, he experiences a crisis of belief. Friedrich Nietzsche called this the revaluation of all values, when reality forces us to reconstruct our belief systems. Psychologists call it cognitive dissonance resolution. Nice guys initially try to cling to the old model. I just need to be nicer, more patient, more giving. But when the pattern repeats, they snap and the transformation begins. The experimentation. Now he starts testing the opposite behaviors. If being available didn't work, he goes distant. If being selfless didn't work, he puts himself first. This is overcompensation. It's not strategic, it's desperate. A shot in the dark, trying to find anything that works. And tragically, it does work. Women who were bored before now chase. Attention that was ignored now gets rewarded when it's withdrawn. He learns what B.F. Skinner called variable ratio reinforcement, the same reward pattern that makes gambling addictive. Being unavailable works better than being kind. Withholding gets more passion than generosity. The man is horrified, but also addicted, because what works sticks. The integration or extremism fork. This is the critical fork in the road. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, integrating your shadow without becoming it. The nice guy's shadow? Selfishness, aggression, lust, manipulation. Healthy integration means becoming assertive, setting boundaries, keeping empathy, but no longer being a doormat. He becomes selective, grounded, and confident, not from validation, but from inner alignment. But the extremist path, that's when the shadow takes over. He becomes cold, narcissistic, manipulative, and on the surface, both men may look confident, but psychologically, one is integrated, the other is fragmented. Here's a bitter truth. Player behaviors often work better than nice guy behaviors, especially at the beginning. Not because women are evil, not because kindness is bad, but because of how evolutionary psychology works. Robert Greene once said, "We're drawn to those with options, mystery, and confidence." Nice guys signal desperation. Players signal value because they act like they have choices. And so the feedback loop begins. Nice guy behaviors get punished. Player behaviors get rewarded. Society teaches one model, dating dynamics reward the opposite. And that psychological contradiction, it's what creates players. But here's what no one tells you. Yes, player behavior creates attraction. Yes, it creates success, but it also destroys your soul. The man must armor his heart, turn emotion into strategy, connection into performance. Oscar Wilde once said, "When we are happy, we are always good. But when we are good, we are not always happy." The player becomes successful, but also lonely, emotionally numb, disconnected from his own desire for love and intimacy. He can be wanted, but never truly known. And here lies the tragedy. He still wants what he wanted as a nice guy: love, connection, meaning. But the armor he built to protect himself now keeps all of that out. He wins the game, but loses himself. So if this resonates, share it. Not to shame anyone, not to judge, but because understanding is the first step toward healing. Most players aren't bad men. They're good men, reshaped by pain, rewarded for cruelty, and punished for care. Until we understand that, we'll keep losing good men to systems that teach them to stop being good. And we'll keep wondering why love feels harder to find than ever. So let's bring this all together, because understanding how players are created is only half the equation. The real question is, what can we do about it? The answer isn't what most people expect, and it's certainly not what most people want to hear. Integration over extremism. The goal isn't to prevent men from learning the lessons that create players. Many of those lessons are actually valuable. The importance of having boundaries, the need to maintain your own identity in relationships, the recognition that kindness without strength is often ineffective. The goal is to help men integrate these lessons without losing their humanity in the process. Aristotle wrote about the concept of the golden mean, the idea that virtue lies not in extremes, but in the balanced integration of opposing forces. This is exactly what we need in modern relationships. Neither the pure nice guy nor the pure player represents an optimal strategy for long-term happiness and relationship success. What we need is what I call the authentic alpha, a man who combines genuine strength with genuine care, who has learned to be selectively generous rather than indiscriminately selfless, who understands attraction psychology but uses this knowledge ethically rather than manipulatively. This man has integrated his shadow without being consumed by it. He's learned that he can be kind without being weak, that he can care deeply while maintaining his independence, that he can be emotionally available without being emotionally desperate. The two paths, healthy integration versus toxic extremism. Here's how to distinguish between them. Healthy integration produces a man who develops genuine confidence based on self-knowledge, not on conquest, maintains his capacity for empathy while learning appropriate boundaries, uses his understanding of attraction psychology to build genuine connections, not to exploit vulnerabilities, becomes more selective about emotional investment without becoming incapable of emotional investment, learns to prioritize his own needs without completely disregarding others. Toxic extremism produces a man who develops defensive arrogance based on past hurt, not genuine self-worth, suppresses empathy entirely as a protective mechanism, uses psychological insights solely for manipulation and conquest, becomes incapable of genuine emotional investment, views all relationships as zero-sum games where someone must lose. The difference isn't always immediately visible from the outside. Both types of men might appear similarly confident, similarly attractive, similarly successful with women, but their internal experiences and their long-term trajectories are completely different. The integrated man becomes more capable of love over time. The extremist becomes less capable of love over time. The societal implications. This phenomenon has implications that extend far beyond individual relationships. For men, understanding this transformation process is crucial for preventing the toxic extreme while still allowing for healthy growth. Young men need to understand that the lesson isn't nice guys finish last. It's nice guys without boundaries, standards, and self-respect finish last. The goal is to develop what psychologists call prosocial dominance, leadership and strength that serves others rather than exploiting them. This requires integrating traditionally masculine traits, like assertiveness and independence, with traditionally feminine traits, like empathy and emotional intelligence. For women, this understanding is equally important. Many women unconsciously reward player behaviors while consciously saying they want nice guys. This creates the psychological double bind that produces players in the first place. Women who want to encourage healthy masculinity need to learn to recognize and reward genuine strength rather than just exciting dysfunction. This means being attracted to men who have boundaries and empathy, who are confident and caring, who can lead and collaborate. This transformation isn't new. It's been occurring throughout human history. What's new is the scale and speed at which it's happening. In previous generations, most men learned these lessons gradually within the context of stable communities and clear social roles. They had mentors, fathers, uncles, older brothers, who could guide them through the process of integrating strength and compassion. Today, many men learn these lessons through trial and error in an anonymous dating market, often after years of following advice that doesn't work. The transformation happens more suddenly, more extremely, and with less guidance toward healthy integration. Social media and dating apps have amplified both the opportunities for rejection and the opportunities for validation through sexual conquest. This has created a generation of men who swing more wildly between the nice guy and player extremes, often never finding the balanced middle ground. Embracing the paradox. Here's the ultimate paradox that resolves this entire phenomenon. The men who make the best long-term partners are often those who could be players, but choose not to be. A man who has learned to attract women but uses that ability ethically. A man who understands power dynamics but chooses to use his power to build rather than destroy. A man who has integrated his shadow but hasn't been consumed by it. This is why the nice guy to player transformation, when it leads to healthy integration, can actually be positive. It teaches men that they can be both strong and kind, both independent and connected, both attractive and ethical. The tragedy isn't that nice guys learn to be more strategic in relationships. The tragedy is when they learn to be strategic at the expense of their capacity for genuine connection. So what's the solution? It starts with honesty. Honest conversations about what actually creates attraction, honest acknowledgement of the psychological forces at play, honest recognition that both men and women contribute to these dynamics. We need to stop pretending that kindness alone is sufficient for romantic success while also not abandoning kindness entirely. We need to teach young men to be both strong and compassionate, both confident and caring. Most importantly, we need to understand that the men who become players aren't the villains of this story. They're often the casualties of a system that didn't teach them how to be both kind and strong from the beginning. The nice guy who becomes a player isn't necessarily choosing evil over good. He's often choosing effectiveness over ineffectiveness, learning over naivety, psychological survival over psychological vulnerability. Our job isn't to judge this transformation. Our job is to understand it, and in understanding it, to guide it toward health rather than toxicity, integration rather than extremism, wisdom rather than mere strategy. Because at the end of the day, what the world needs isn't fewer strong men or fewer kind men. What the world needs is more men who have learned to be both. So here's what I want to know. Have you witnessed this transformation in yourself or someone you care about? What factors do you think determine whether it leads to healthy growth or toxic extremism? And for those who've been through this process, what helped you integrate these lessons without losing your capacity for genuine love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This is exactly the kind of nuanced conversation we need to be having about modern relationships. If this deep psychological analysis has been valuable to you, like this episode, subscribe to the channel for more insights into the hidden dynamics of human relationships. Remember, understanding human psychology isn't about judgment. It's about compassion and wisdom. The goal isn't to shame anyone for their journey, but to help everyone navigate it more skillfully. As always, thank you for thinking deeply with me.